I'm Dr. Lederman. I'm here with
Paul Kellerman.
And Paul. How long have you known me?
I met you, I would say about 5 years ago, but I knew of you from 30 years ago because you treated my dad in 1998. He had prostate cancer and he was scheduled for surgery, and he had heard about you and put a call into the office, and you called him at 5:45 a.m. in the morning and said, I'd like to see you, why don't you come in? And you convinced my dad and gave him his treatment options, and you did the radioactive seed implants.
So this is almost 30 years ago.
And he was at the time 54, he lived, thank God, another 35 years, never had a problem.
So a long time ago. And was he satisfied with the care?
He loved it. Loved you.
What did he tell you about the care?
You know, we were just happy. We were worried we were going to lose my father. You know, his prognosis was not good. He was given an option to go for chemotherapy and surgery. And you provided an alternative treatment. He was happy he could get back on the golf course sooner. Whatever you said, I know he believed in you. He said, that's the guy. And he was impressed that you called him at 5:45 in the morning. He couldn't believe the phone was ringing. And you made it so simple for him. And thank God, we were grateful for that. And then fast forward to my story.
Did you meet me back in 1998?
No, didn't know you. Just heard about you.
Okay, so he was treated adequately, at least?
Couldn't have been better.
And he was cancer-free for the rest of his life?
Cancer-free for the rest of his life. Played golf right up until the time his back hurt him in 2021 when he was 87.
So I had never long enough, but a good long life.
Yes, thanks to you. Thank God.
Okay, so then let's talk about you for a minute. So you've actually been at a few super-duper hospitals like we talk about over the years, right?
Yes, I was...
But we're not going to tell the names of the places.
I was experiencing a lot of discomfort in my neck. There was a lump, and I went to my primary care doctor and said, "What is that?" And he said, "That might be a goiter. Don't worry about it. Let's see." And then all of a sudden, another 3 months, it was like a orange in the size of my neck. And I said, "Look, what do we do with this thing?" He said, "Does it bother you?" And I said, "No, but it looks like I have 2 golf balls there. I'm a golf professional." And he said, "Well, we could do a biopsy." And he did. And I asked him what was the result of the biopsy. He said, "Call me tomorrow, I'll have it." And then it happened to be a Wednesday. And then I called him on Thursday. And he said, "You know what, call me over the weekend." We were friends. And I asked him on Saturday, what did you say? He said, "Oh, if the girls in the office haven't called, you're fine." He said, "You would have gotten it back." He said, don't have it here, but you're fine." I called again. He said, "Just check with me on Monday." He said, "Everything is good." About 4 months later, that was February, it was June. Now it looked like a football the size of my neck, and I started to wonder. I took a friend of mine in, she was having chest pains, and I said, "Hey doc, what about this? This is getting larger and larger." And he said, "Oh, you know what, let me go check my paperwork." And then about a day later he called me, he said, "You have cancer." I said, "Cancer?" I said, "What happened?" He said, "I thought the biopsy." He goes, "It slipped through the cracks." He goes, "Don't worry, I'm going to send you for it'd be a little cut." Well, the little cut turned into a surgery that they did a thyroidectomy in 2015. And the doctor said, I said, "Am I okay?" And he said, top doctor, he said, "I don't know." He said, "It might have spread." He goes, "Let's see." Sent me to to a endocrinologist. She said, "We're going to do radioactive iodine." Okay, whatever that is. We did it, and she said, "There's a little small bit of it in your lungs." I said, "Well, what are we going to do?" She said, "Well, let's wait till it grows. It's very small." Well, 4 years later, my cancer reoccurred, and it was now in the neck baseline, and I went to do a second radioactive iodine. I thought, all right, this is good. 2021, I went, and then I found out it was now all in my paratracheal lymph nodes. Now it was serious. I went to a top hospital, the second top thyroid oncologist in the country. And he said, "I'm going to send you, there's a new procedure out, RDA, radioactive," I don't remember what it is. He said that they'll go down there, and I met the person who created it. She was supposed to be tops, and she said, "I can't get all of it." I said, "What's the problem?" And she said, "You got a real estate problem, location." I said, "Well, treat some of it." "What would treat it?" And she said, "No, you're 61 years old, you're a male, You got cancer, it's in your lung, it's in your spine. Prior to that, I had a biopsy. They found the cancer was in my, I had thyroid tissue in my spine. And they did a biopsy there, and then the doctor, because I had a crack in a vertebrae, did a vertebroplasty while he was doing the biopsy. I came out and they said, well, it's inconclusive. I said to now the other doctor that was going to do the RDA procedure for my neck, what do I do? And she said, I can't get at it. It's very expensive. We can only do part of it. I delivered pizza at the time. I said, I'm looking for a couple of slices. If you can't do the whole pie, do something. She said, you're too old. It's over. It's in your bones. It's in your lungs. I'm sorry, I can't help you. So I went back to the oncologist, the top of this doctor, and he said to me, I'm going to give you a treatment. I'm going to send you for a pill. And I said, well, what about chemotherapy? I said, the doctor said chemotherapy doesn't work on my type of cancer. And he said, no, don't worry, we'll take care of it. I said, well, is there side effects? I was worried, I was balding. I said, I don't want my hair to completely fall out. I said, I got to work. And he said, no, you'll be fine. He said, just some itching in the hands. He said, I'm going away for 2 weeks. I'm going to send it to you. Can't go to a P.O. box. Has to come to your home. Okay, very good. They called me up because, he told me he was going to send it to me. What the hospital then called me up at the pharmaceutical company and said, we're sending it to you, but we can't send it to a P.O. box. Give us your home address. I said, okay. And I said, why can't you send it to the P.O. box? He said, oh, we can't send chemotherapy in the mail. I said, chemotherapy? I don't want chemotherapy. It doesn't. Why not? I said, I was told it doesn't work on my type of cancer. So 2 weeks later, this top oncologist called me and he said, Paul, why didn't you take the drug I sent you? I said, Doc, it doesn't work on, I was told the chemotherapy doesn't work on this type of cancer. And he said to me, well, we got to do something. It'll go somewhere. You got it in other parts of your body. I said, that doesn't make any sense. He goes, well, you only got about, I said, how much time do I have left? Probably, if it goes aggressively, within a year, the most 18 months. I'm sorry. So that's why we have to do something. And I said, all right, I'll see you later. I said, then my best friend said, what about that guy that treated your doctor? I said, oh, Dr. Lederman. I didn't even think of it. I went down, I came in the office. He couldn't have been more affable. And he said, what's going on? I brought him all my results. And I said, well, I had it in my thyroid. It went to metastasized to my lung, and then it's in my spine. But now it's in my paratracheal lymph nodes. What do I do? And he said to me, here are your options, which is what I liked. He said, you can do chemotherapy, you can do surgery, you can also do immunotherapy. I said, they're all telling me to do that, but chemo doesn't work on my cancer, Doc. He said, that's right. I said, well, then why would they do that? He said, money. He said, I'm going to tell you what I think you should do, and I'm going to tell you the truth. Chemotherapy will kill the cancer. It'll also kill you. And it always comes back. So I'm saying, well, why would I want it anyway? And he said, I don't know why you would want it, especially if they told you it doesn't work on your particular type of cancer. I said, so what do I do? I said, what about the back? He said, let's treat what they said is going to kill you. He said, what did they say? I said, well, the paratracheal nodes are expanding. I'm eventually going to stop breathing, stop eating, stop talking. I can remember saying, they'll pay you for that. And he said, you're going to die. He said, so let's get at that. He said, I'm going to tell you, I've looked at it, 95% you're going to be completely fine. And I said, well, why didn't they do it? He said, they don't want you to come to me because I'm going to heal you. He said, we can't do anything for the back. I said, why not? I was more worried about the back. As a golf professional, I have to turn, my spine. He said, well, unfortunately, when they did the vertebroplasty, the doctor that did it and did the one-stop shopping didn't wait for the biopsy results, so now the tumor board says it's inconclusive. He said, your imaging is inconclusive. I said, what do you mean? He said, because he put that glue in there. He said, now we know thyroid tissue can't come in here from the neck. He said, so it's obviously cancer, but I'll get in trouble and you'll get in trouble if I do it. Let's treat this. Don't worry about that. And he said, we'll move on. So I said, well, what do I do? I said, well, why would he do that? Why would he do one-stop shopping? Why wouldn't he do the biopsy, get the result, then go back in if I had a crack in my vertebrae? He said, 25,000, probably got for that 10 minutes. He said, let me take care of you. So I said, what do I do? He said, I'm going to give you a procedure called stereotactic radiation. He said, it's been developed, I've worked. I said, I remember you were at Staten Island University when you treated my dad. And then I went over and reminisced. How's your dad? He was so concerned. I said, he's doing great. I said, he couldn't be better. I said, he's 86 years old now. He said, wonderful. He said, come in here. I said, well, do you think I'll be okay? I said, am I going to bleed? I said, is there any kind of pain? He said, Paul, do you see anybody holding the walls, walking out with blood coming out every orifice? He said, you'll be just fine. 5-7 minutes, and I met his staff. They tattooed my body. He has a tremendous staff. Everybody concerned, does their job. It's like a well-oiled machine. His name is Shanto. He consulted with me. He came, he put a little dot, and he said, I'll see you next week. He mapped out a schedule. He said, 3 weeks, 10 times, 3 times a week for 3 weeks, 7 minutes. Couldn't have been easier. I came in, did the treatment. 3 weeks later, gave my results. He said, we'll wait, take an MRI. Cancer all gone. I've had no problem since. That was 2022. I was supposed to be dead in 2023, or the latest by November, earliest by November 2022, the latest by 2023 April. Here it is, April 2026. I'm here, cancer-free. I couldn't have been more pleased and privileged. And when I look at all the room and see all the stars, the former presidents, secretary of state, actresses, people that are in my generation that know Dr. Lederman, that have received his service, music industry professionals, they all say the same thing. Go to Dr. Lederman. At least you're gonna, and any people that have come to me with cancer, I always say, go see him. He's not gonna tell you he can fix you. He's gonna tell you, here are your options. I'm gonna do my best, but the decision is up to you. We leave the rest to God. And what impressed me the most, he's a good man, a holy man. He always said, God bless you. And he called me when the cancer treatment was done, and he said, I got your results, Mr. Kellerman. I was delivering a pizza, matter of fact, it fell off the chair. I had to go buy another one for the customer. And he said, you're cancer-free, exactly what we thought. And he said, but I want you to pray for those that didn't make it, those that weren't as fortunate. And he said, and I said, thank you, Doc. He said, no. He goes, I'm grateful that your outcome was good, and pray for them. What more could you ask for? An honest doctor, someone who believes, who's dedicated his life. And I even saw him. I would get there because I have a busy schedule. I was there at 5 o'clock in the morning. He was a little reluctant to give me the first appointment because the waiting room could get crowded. I said, I will be there at 5. He was there at 4:45. I came in, out, and the whole time I only got 1 ticket parking. So I couldn't have been any happier. And I'm grateful that he asked me to do this. It's from my heart, and I'll always be grateful. And the best thing I could do is tell other people of this gift to the world that Dr. Lederman and his son, Dr. Ariel, have been, and Shanto. Really, I'm a very, very humbled by it. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him.
You always talk about the doctor at the super place who told you you had 6 months to live.
That's correct.
Did you ever go back to that doctor and say, here I am, a year, 2 years, 3
No,
years?
I didn't. But the last time he said, well, if you don't, you're going to die. And I said, Doc, I got to go. I said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to go do something else. And I never went back, but I probably should go back. That's probably not a bad idea. Good man, but it made no sense to me. What are you going to give me a chemotherapy drug for when you're telling me chemo doesn't work on my cancer? And then I learned later in my discovery, speaking with doctors and also Dr. Lederman, every patient that's put on chemotherapy, the hospitals get a kickback. They get $10,000 every month from big pharma, just whether they're on it, they need it or not. And it just didn't make sense to me. And even if it did, I would have explored it, but why do that? And since when I go to my thyroid doctor, my endocrinologist, well, why would I go? I'm cancer-free. He said, but it doesn't make sense that you're not going to go. I said, why would I do that? if it doesn't help my cancer. And after going to Dr. Lederman, I'm fit as a fiddle. Never felt better. I'm 64 years old. I'll be 65 in 2 months. Whatever time I have left on earth, Dr. Lederman improved my quality of life, gave me peace of mind. He's not a crystal ball. He doesn't have a crystal ball. He said, this is what I believe I can do. We'll do this, and this is what you can expect. I've had these results. And he's told the same to multiple other people that I've referred to. And I always say the same to everyone.
All right, well, thank you. And as we say, you should live to be 120. God bless you.
God bless you too.